What's going on, guys? My name is Eric with the Boat Specialist up in Northern California. I'm from our Richmond office, but we have another dealership down here in Ventura. I have the pleasure of taking 3 awesome boats out to the Channel Islands. I'm coming to you today from our Gulfstream 232 by Grady-White. This is a 23.5-foot boat with a 9'3" beam. So although it's a really manageable length, you can fit it in quite a few different marinas and slit configurations. It has 9'3" of beam. So it's a super stable boat. As I walk side to side, you'll notice the boat doesn't even move. The 9'3" beam makes fishing, makes docking, makes trailering, makes every day-to-day operation on a vessel that much easier. Being able to get to the bow safely allows me to, grab a fishing rod with one hand on the boat at all times, walk up here, 1 foot after the other, pass off to each handhold, make my way safely up to the bow to cast. One great thing about this boat's setup for anchoring out at the islands, up in Northern California, anywhere up and down our west coast or beyond, is having great access to your anchor. We have a power windlass by Lumar right here. You don't even have to leave the cockpit to use it. With the combination of the easy walk around and the windlass controls at your cockpit, anchoring has never been easier on a 23-foot boat. Grady-White wouldn't be a Grady-White without Yamaha. Yamaha and Grady-White have had a relationship for about as long as Grady-White's been in business. Powering this Gulfstream 232 are a set of Yamaha F200s. These motors are the electric steering versions. You'll see on the forward side of these cowlings, you don't see hydraulic hoses, you don't see a big ram, you don't see a whole mess of rigging going back to your engines. What that gives us the ability to do is walk all over that swim platform, get in and out of the water from the dive ladder. It keeps the stern of the boat clean, tidy, and safe. There's also a lot less for you to snag fishing line on. As you're chasing a fish around the cockpit of this boat, you can pretty much drag your line all around the engines if you had to, and there's not a whole lot to catch on other than the props. As we make our way up to the transom and the cockpit area here, you'll notice a huge storage locker with really high quality stainless fasteners. Grady-White uses the highest grade of stainless you can possibly get in the maritime industry, and it shows in its fit and finish and its durability. This cockpit is also surrounded on all 3 sides by these awesome coaming bolsters, and when you pair these with the tow rail, you can stick your feet under the rail, lean your knees and your thighs up against the coaming bolster, and now you have a super stable platform to fish from. So as we're rocking side to side, as we get into some less than ideal conditions, even having 1 foot under there, 1 foot back, a knee on the bolster, it just gives you that stability and that added comfort to fish. And even as you're coming into the dock. One of my favorite parts of this cockpit is the aft bench seat. And it's easy to deploy, it's super high quality, it doesn't wobble. Some of these bench seats, when they're folded up, the fasteners are all really lightweight. Grady-White doesn't have that issue. Everything is solid. So you take one hand, put it underneath, pull up, and you just let it drop into place. You hear that solid clunk, no rattles. This gives you the ability to sit out, relax, have a meal, enjoy your fresh catch. And one of the things that makes this boat perform so well is its 9'3" beam. In California, we have to have a wide load permit at anything over 8'6" technically. A lot of people don't, but you're supposed to get a wide load permit. It's a really easy process, and a lot of people think they have to get a boat that is under an 8'6" beam in order to safely and easily trailer in California. That's just not the case. We've got plenty of boats in our fleet that we trailer all the time. All you do is apply for that wide load permit. It's really inexpensive. You hang a flag off the props in the back and you're good to go. This boat's only about 26.5 feet long with the motors trimmed all the way up. So that's like tip of the outboards to tip of the bow. and it's still a pretty manageable size to tow. You could get away with a half-ton truck, no problem. This boat is 100% self-bailing, which means as you get water in the boat, as you're washing down the deck from fish blood and scales and all that good stuff, all of the dirty water is gonna exit the boat out of those scupper drains, and it's not gonna get stuck in the bilge. Ideally, everything that ends up on your deck exits the boat, and your bilge pump doesn't have to then grind it up and get it out of the bilge. So one thing this does, if you keep your boat in the slip and the rain starts, you don't really have to worry about your batteries so much. You know, on boats that aren't self-bailing, when the rainstorm hits, you know, you're going out to the boat at the dock, you know, once every few days to make sure those batteries are up to par and are still operating that bilge pump. This boat, you don't have to worry about that. That rainwater isn't gonna make it down to the bilge, except for around, you know, gaps in hatches and that kind of thing. But all of the gaps in the hatches on this boat are guttered and also drain afterward into those drains. So you really shouldn't see any water in the bilge of this boat other than from maybe washing it down. As we circle around the cockpit here, you'll notice these two steps. One thing I noticed when we were fishing today is these rod holders are really tall. This is a big cockpit. It kind of reminds me of being on a 40-foot sport fisher in a little 23.5-foot boat, which is an awesome feeling, but I'm 6'2". I have a hard time reaching these rod holders. So what Grady-White has done is added these steps with non-skid in a really good place, so you can just put a foot up there, get your rod in place, and go about your day. Underneath this step is a live bait well. So today we filled up with anchovies, and we were able to fit about a half a scoop comfortably while keeping the fish alive. You could fit a lot more in there, but our West Coast anchovies are so sensitive that, you know, less is more sometimes. So having your live bait well as part of the boat molded in as a step, it's just a really smart use of space, and it allows you to free up a lot of this cockpit. A lot of our West Coast fishing boats, you'll see, you know, a big 75-gallon bait well in the center of the cockpit. You can totally do that on this boat, but I think you'll find 9 out of 10 times trips to the islands, you're not gonna need it. This 30-gallon bait well is more than adequate for a weekend. And the identical step over on this side, rather than having an aerated bait well, it is an insulated fish box. On a lot of boats, your fish boxes will drain to the bilge, or they'll drain into a macerator discharge, which is basically a blender for your fish guts that pumps it overboard. This boat, it doesn't have that complexity. That fish box drains directly overboard, so you don't have to worry about that pump clogging and ruining your day. You know, forward of this step, you'll notice we've got a little compartment with a tackle station. So Grady-White has supplied tackle boxes. You can fit your lures, your surface irons, your lines, your ledge, sinkers, all that good stuff. What I love about the removable tackle boxes is you can bring them home and load them up and kind of like daydream about your next fishing trip while you set up and supply for your next run out. As we pan upwards and look at this giant hardtop, you'll notice 9 rod holders for a 23.5-foot boat on the hardtop. That's huge. We filled up quite a few of them today. More rod holders, the better. You can't have too many. We also have another 4 back aft in the cockpit. So for trolling, you know, for getting a good even spread, you don't want to tangle your lines. Having just the options to put rods everywhere is huge on a fishing boat of this caliber. On the topic of rod storage, we went over the rod holders in the hardtop. Another thing, Grady-White has included rod storage underneath the gunnels. So if you look down, you know, above the tow rail, there is rod storage for 2 rods, port and starboard. So a total of 4 rods in the storage under the gunnels, keeps them nice and dry, keeps them out of the sun. One last thing to wrap up in the cockpit is the convenient location of the battery switches. One of my pet peeves on boats is when the battery switches are hidden underneath compartments that are really difficult to get to. When I hop on my boat, I just want to be able to turnkey and go, and having a hatch like that, you just hop in, turn your switches on, fire up your electronics, and you're good to go. So as we walk up here to the helm station, I just want to go over how easy this boat is to operate in single hand. As you pan up here to the helm, it has a tilting helm, rotates fore and aft. You can put it wherever you want. So, you know, for shorter people, for taller people, big people with larger frames like myself, it's really nice to be able to get that helm up and out of the way of your knees. So as you're sitting and standing, it's easy access. We've opted for one 12-inch Garmin VHF radio. You know, your standard Yamaha 5-inch LCD display. It's a touchscreen. And then all your illuminated rocker switches over there, front and center, lit up. The controls on this boat are fully fly-by-wire, utilizing Yamaha's digital electronic controls. You'll see it abbreviated as DEC on their website. That throttle binnacle sends an electronic signal back to the engines, and that's what shifts the lower units in and out of gear. It's not a physical cable that you have to grease, that you have to maintain. It's about as low maintenance as it gets on a boat. If you ever notice on a cable throttle, when you kind of slowly put it into gear, you notice that subtle grind. These never do that. It's just a solid clunk into gear. When you go forward or reverse, there's no grinding. And that achieves two things. It achieves effortless shifting in the marina and in close quarters as you're popping in and out of gear to pivot the boat, to back into your slip, to tie up to the dock. And it's also way less wear and tear on your lower units. We noticed the lower units of these modern Yamaha DEC motors lasting quite a bit longer than their mechanical counterparts. You'll notice how good the visibility is up here from the helm station. You know, we have a very sturdy hardtop situation up here with a lot of uprights, a lot of cross members. It makes everything really rigid without sacrificing your field of view. So they've done a really good job of positioning them in a way that from the driver's seat, you can look port, starboard, over your shoulder, over your other shoulder, and of course, out and over the bow without being blocked by a ton of bars. On this boat, we've opted for the dual deluxe captain chairs. They swivel all the way around. So if you want to face aftward and use that step as a footrest and watch your rods in the cockpit rod holders, you can do that. Or you can flip it all the way around and look forward as you're driving. One thing I love about these is how sturdy and easy to articulate the leaning post bolster is. Another one of my pet peeves on boats is when you have a really cool feature that's hard to use. This is a really cool feature that is completely one-handed operation. It's smooth, it's rigid, it's not rattling side to side as the boat's taking chop. You'll notice there's no creaks, there's no rattles, it just lifts straight up into position. It's super buttery smooth, super high quality stainless components and nice bushings in between the fasteners to just create that next level premium fuel that we come to know and love from Grady-White. We've talked a lot about features on this boat. Now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty of performance. We had our favorite Captain Henry at the helm, and he's kind of a madman. He's a little heavy-handed on the throttle sometimes, but we had a beautiful day, so we really got to put this boat through its paces, do some tight corners, some figure eights, and create some big wakes and jump those. Boat's 9'3" beam paired with 400 horsepower from the Yamaha outboards. It jumps right out of the hole, gets up on plane really quickly, tops out at about 52 miles an hour loaded. That's with how this boat's propped and how we were loaded today, that's what we were seeing in really nice sea state. So I think you can expect about high 40s, low 50s, depending on how you're loaded, at a really efficient cruise. These are 4-cylinder, 1.8 liter displacement outboards. So it's a lot of horsepower, but it's not a lot of displacement. They are extremely fuel efficient. You get the benefit of having 2 props in the water to get you up on plane, but then you're not really paying for it in fuel. Traditionally a twin outboard boat is, you're burning tons and tons of fuel to achieve your comfortable cruise and your wide open throttle top speed. With these 200s, you're not really giving up that much fuel economy for the benefit and the redundancy and safety aspect of twin outboards. So that's huge. Having 400 horsepower while retaining some really awesome fuel economy, can't beat it. The SeaV² hull, combined with 400 horsepower from Yamaha, creates one of the most confidence-inspiring rides you can expect in a boat of this size. Thanks for taking the time to enjoy the Gulfstream 232 by Grady-White with us today. We had a blast. The boat rides awesome. It runs awesome. Everything about it. I don't think I'd change a single aspect on this boat. It's a performer. It's comfortable. It's safe. What more could you ask for? Come give us a visit at Boat Specialist at either of our showrooms, one in Ventura, California, one in Richmond, California. Come take a Grady-White for a test run.